Away from the National Assembly, the Economic Community of West African States has activated a standby force to combat terrorism and transnational crime in the sub-region. This was the outcome of the 43rd Ordinary Meeting of ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff in Abuja. Stephanie Sien has more.
ECOWAS defense chiefs gather in Abuja to discuss the state of security in the sub-region and threats posed by terrorism.
The Central Sahelian countries are today still the epicenter of this terrorist menace, while the littoral states continue to bear the pressure, whether it is in Benin, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and others. Indeed, according to the latest report of the Global Terrorist Index, the Sahel accounted for 51% of all global terrorism deaths in 2024.
The 43rd Ordinary Meeting of ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff will also work out modalities for the ECOWAS Standby Force meant to combat terrorism and transnational crime. The modalities include a review of pledges for the ECOWAS Standby Force, consideration of pledges for the Standby Force, Counter-Terrorism Brigade, and the rotation of staff officers of Peace Support Operations Divisions.
The complexity of the security landscape demands that we leverage our collective expertise, intelligence assets, and coordinate our efforts towards borders if we must solve these challenges as the world has become a global village and the gap between us shrinking even more. Thus, collaboration is paramount and imperative to address both the root causes and symptoms of insecurity in our region.
As the Chief of Police in Nigeria, we recognize the critical roles that our defense forces play in maintaining peace, security, and stability of our region.
I am pleased to highlight the activation of the ECOWAS Standby Force to combat terrorism in the sub-region. The activation of this force underscores our collective determination to confront the scourge of terrorism with regards to insecurity and ensure the safety and security of our citizens.
This is coming barely 2 months after the Alliance of Sahelian States comprising Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger announced the deployment of a joint force comprising 5,000 troops. Sifon Asian, TVC News, Abuja.
Coming up tonight is a conversation with former Assistant Director of the DSS, Dennis Amakri, on ECOWAS. We told you earlier that ECOWAS has now activated a standby force in reaction to terrorism in the sub-region. I'm joined by former Assistant Director of the Department of State Services, Dennis Amakri. Mr. Amakri, thanks for joining us on the news this hour.
Thank you very much.
So ECOWAS has had this standby force since 1990, deployed it a couple of times. We saw it addressing the crisis in, I think it was the Gabon in 2017, thereabout. But the sub-region bloc has also been criticized for not pulling its military weight when it comes to fighting terrorism on the region. In 2023, for instance, we saw jihadist killing increase by 38%. Would you say this is a genuine shift in counter-terrorism strategy or just a response to the Alliance of Sahel States?
Well, you know that we had an ECOMOG force which worked in ECOWAS military forces working in Liberia. And then, of course, Nigeria, led that particular team. And then, of course, right now, we have the Sahel states, the AES states, who are also activating a standby force in their own area. But I'm happy that with the ECOWAS coming together to do this, it means that we are at least having a shared concern to, approach this particular problem together.
Mali and Burkina Faso are now politically hostile to ECOWAS. How feasible is cross-border coordination in this regard?
Well, if I cut it properly, I think some members of Mali, or is it Burkina Faso, were part of this particular meeting that the ECOWAS, the Chief of Defense Staff is hosting right now. Because you see, when it comes to security, it's a shared responsibility. In politics, people can do whatever they want to do. But, well, if they are not here in this meeting, then I think the ECOWAS forces have to go ahead and then pursue the agenda, because we cannot fight this alone. And when there is an international support, then I think we can have some success.
So you don't anticipate any potential clash with Russian mercenaries reportedly operating in that region?
Well, if there are Russian mercenaries that are operating in from Mali, for instance, or Burkina Faso, well, if there is a clash, then they have to either review their original objective of being there, because the original objective was to fight terrorism. Now, we are fighting terrorism in ECOWAS, and if they are coming to join that to fight the same terrorism, that is well and fine. But if they are not, then I think as we progress, we will come to know, because in the field, we will know what is really happening.
Interesting days ahead. Former Assistant Director, DSS, Dennis Amakri, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.